der zentralen Position. Nur Schwanze an der Vorsicht. Dann ist es Fjørtoft. Er ist im Strafraum. Tor! Tor! Für die Frankfurter Eintracht. 5:1. Herrlich!
Hi and welcome to the German Fußball Podcast, as we often are over Zoom for this episode. And just to be a bit closer to you, Dad, I've worn your old Sheffield United jersey today.
Wow.
Just to show that you're still my footballing idol.
Oh, that is brilliant! And I got some good memories. This is the Sheffield United away shirt. I played a hectic but a very successful period for Sheffield United. When I see that shirt, I'm thinking of my partner Brian Deane. I played it up front with him. Brian Deane is always answer to quiz who scored the first goal in the Premier League, and that was Brian Deane. But I'm just wondering, Markus, all the shirts you have behind you, that is the first time I've seen you put that up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a mixture of shirts you played with, or that
I
you
wish
got, or
I wish I played against or with or for these teams, but I've become, when you were younger, I always asked for a shirt wherever you were around, maybe a bit small, but I said, I love shirt, and I have so many shirts because that's all I wore. And then football shirts, I had a bit of a renaissance. I didn't buy a football shirt in a long time, but then these shirts are getting cooler and cooler. So if I bring this one in, that's Inter Miami. That's a pretty cool one.
That is Inter Miami, yeah, cool one. And
then we have Como, where I was in the interview, and fantastic, nice club, and the people that run it. But
I was seeing, but a cool shirt, and Como was a cool place. I was watching the last Dennis Weiss interview, and you did then Fabregas. It was a great conversation. I played against Dennis Weiss, and I think it was great anecdote you started with when he wanted to move from Wimbledon, and Bobby Gold, the legendary English manager, said, "Well, it's okay, but then we're going to have a boxing fight." So that was a great story, and I think that is it's a bit of the 90s. I mean, I'm getting that age now. I think that when I played in the Premiership and I played in English football, the 90s is kind of getting into kind of what you talk about Renaissance. It's talking about a period that there was one foot in the old English football, and then they come into a new one with Arsene Wenger coming in, talking about how you eat, how you sleep, and change everything in and around. And he was an example of that at Arsenal, but he had some with Tony Adams, one of the old schools, making him into captain. Ian Wright, legendary goal getter, now a great.
There's a nostalgia to it, right? There's these jerseys here. I remember picking this one out because you had two full bags of it back home where you're from, where I'm from for that matter, but you know what I mean. And I picked this one out because I liked it. It was a long sleeve one, nice and clean, nice and white. And to be fair, you have a lot of nice jerseys at home as well. And
it was sorry to interrupt you. I was just saying that those at that time it started when I started off in Vienna, by Rapid Vienna. There was no chance that we could swap shirts, and when we played for the national team, we had a kit manager. He would kill us if we swapped shirts because we didn't have more than 2 or 3 sets. But then I came to England, and then when the Premier League more or less started, and it started with names on and everything, then it was more personalized, and then we were able to swap shirts. And I think also at the beginning, when I started in season 2 of Premier League, talking about Brian Deane. I started at Swindon Town in season 2 of Premiership. At the beginning, we didn't swap shirts, but then it come more and more foreigners who was used to do that, and that was a great thing. I was collecting my programs. I still got my programs from the most games in England. But still, then we started with doing shirts, and of course you stole the shirts or you took the shirts home that you played for, and that away shirt you have there is also a bit iconic. As the second shirts, now they have third shirts. Maybe we had that as well, but now, as you were saying, the shirts are changing. People want to wear them. People want to wear them in private. I mean that now this white shirt now it's so. it was good for my body because it covered that at the end of my career that I wasn't the tiniest, but it was fantastic. And talking about Swindon, Marcus, you made your debut yesterday as a co-commentator at BBC Wiltshire, didn't you?
Indeed, and on the topic of the reappreciating that of the 90s, so to speak, I'm not saying that's what it was, but I do love coming back to an old ground, Sutton United, having been only in the Football League for a couple of seasons, being primarily National League and below, coming back to that, sitting in those old stands, there is a certain feel about it that can never be really replicated. That's what I loved going back to Scotland for as well, is playing on a lot of these grounds, a Morton, Somerset, at Ayr. It had that, dare I say, old school element to it, and with that, the intimacy the fans have with the crowd, and fair play to Sutton United who won yesterday, a late turnaround, unfortunately for Swindon. But even then, the feel around the stadium when they did win it, it was it's something that you can't really know what feels like unless you've been involved with it, like yourself and myself, and being there. But I had a lot of fun breaking down Swindon's game against Sutton United, and very thankful for them giving me opportunity. So really enjoyed that.
How was it like? How was it like to be on that side? You retired last summer, and now, of course, you follow my. Can't believe that you follow my footsteps. By the way, with that education, you have a master's in business. I have to say, as a dad,
it's crazy how you're able to have time with that, with all the things you do, huh?
Yeah, and then you have Sutton against Swindon, and you do the co-commentator. How was it like? What was the challenge? What was the fun part of it?
The fun part is sitting down and actually like having to break down and analyze a game throughout. There's no distraction or anything. You're watching a football game for 90 minutes. And I'm not saying I haven't done that in the past, but you do. Part of your responsibility is to break down the game. And thankfully I had a very experienced and very sound commentator, and Andrew, who gave me a great tip before the game, and he said, I explain the what and you explain the why. And I could never be close to do what he's doing, but I tried as best possible to bring my own experience. And in that league, the defending is interesting because as a center back, I'll see it in a totally different way, a different way than those who haven't played, in the sense that there are big forwards. You know that when you played that, two big center forwards, chip it on them, build from there. And that's what Sutton United did, and that's what Swindon struggle with. So it's interesting to see that, and you've interviewed Sean Dyche, we had that conversation yesterday, is what way do you play football? And so is, pragmatic, practical often has a negative connotation. But it's about playing to the conditions of the game. Sometimes the game will require you to play a certain way. And I'm sure you have some insight on that from your own experience, but also in the way you analyze Sean Dyche after they beat Arsenal, for instance.
Absolutely, and I saw that. I like that, but I'm doing a lot of thinking of that lately because I'm allergic to teams playing out of the back. I always say that the best teams in the world should do that, and then the coach will say, "Yeah, well, we do it this way, and why we have to practice that?" And I understand that, and sometimes you stand where you sit, and I come from the old school, if you like, quote, old school, as you like, because when I play talking about the 90s, when the Norwegian national team qualified for the World Cups, we were very close to get to Euro 96, and we played, we took the ball up. Me as a striker should keep the ball. We had runs around being in the likes of Leonardsen or Bohinen, and we have sitting midfielder in Kjetil Rekdal was a great number 6, and Erik Mykland that was in that time. But it's always interesting to see that, Marcus. And while you were doing then Sutton against Swindon, I was doing in the studio. We were discussing Bayern Munich and Bayern Munich playing PSG, and it was quite impressive, Marcus, how Bayern did. Bayern, before this game, they won 3-0 against Bochum. It was a funny thing that, if you are a Bayern coach, you will always be under pressure. And they're talking about the FC Hollywood, And you have the Neuer case. You have Tapalovic, the goalkeeping coach, that was fired, and Neuer making that interview with Honigstein. And Honigstein, I can say, will soon be our guest at our podcast. We're looking forward to that. And the basic for this game was that Nagelsmann being the strong man, but if you get knocked out by PSG, I mean, you can get knocked out by PSG, but you can't be knocked out of the Champions League of this stage 2 years in a row. And remember, last season they were knocked out by Villarreal, which was not accepted at all at Bayern, because they just expect you, first of all, to win the league and the cup. The double is more or less, they have to do that. And they won the league last season, RB Leipzig winning the cup, of course. But yesterday, Marcus, they were playing brilliantly. There was a lot of talking about how they would play. Would they play a 4 at the back? Would they play 3 at the back? They ending up playing 3 at the back, but 2 number 6. They had Goretzka and Kimmich as number 6 in the middle of the park. So, and they kept Coman in, they kept Sané in. They used Choupo-Moting as the main striker. So then one player had to go, and quite surprisingly, Thomas Müller was out. And Thomas Müller, because he is the contagious kind of Mr. Bayern, and they say Müller always got to play. That is a quote from Van Gaal. And Müller always got to play. And when Kovac tried to take out Müller, he was gone in some weeks. I mean, that is the story being told. But to be fair to Nagelsmann, he put that. He took him out, and from the first minute they were attacking. From the first minute there was an intensity in the game. In the first half they didn't create a lot of chances, but still they were always in there, and that was a great performance. There was in Paris. Mbappé didn't play from the start. He was out on the bench, but then Messi started, and Mbappé came on when Bayern scored, and he scored as well, Mbappé. But you know, this VAR offside thing, and in the Champions League they have this technique. I can't remember what it's called, but this technique shows how tiny the offside was for Nunez when he crossed for Mbappé. So 1-0 Bayern. Still got another game to go. Away goals is a gun. So there still is a chance, and with a Neymar, with a Messi, with a Mbappé maybe fit in the return game, it's not over. But what a performance from Bayern! They should be very, very proud of that game.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see the game, obviously, but from what I understood, Bayern absolutely dominated that game. And then I saw from the highlights that PSG were able to have a little run of pressure in a couple of disallowed goals and what have you towards the end, but no away goal. Sergio Ramos said it would be of PSG's benefit. I don't know whose benefit it will be that there will be no away goal for that. Yeah,
but having said that, if there is some pluses and minuses with that away goals, Bayern also know now that they can just attack at home, because even if PSG is scoring, the away goals won't count. And a funny little thing to the game, the goal was scored by Coman, the French player. He didn't celebrate. He didn't celebrate when he scored. I would say it was a big mistake from Donnarumma, the Italian goalkeeper. He made up for it when he had a brilliant save from a Choupo-Moting shot. But yeah, it's an open game. I think that would be a great game at home, and Bayern will know what, with those kind of players in there, there's always the potential to score, for them to score. But it's quite interesting, I think, in terms of analysis of football games, is when you compare Bayern with PSG, because PSG got all these great players, but they don't have the intensity that Bayern having. And we discussed it. I was at Sky Corner, Sky Germany yesterday, and we discussed that. And it's quite interesting to see Bayern, because for every Cancelo that they can get in, the dream of getting a Harry Kane in, a De Ligt they took from Juventus, there is always one Musiala, there is always a Davis, there is always a Goretzka that they take on free. So the project Bayern, I think, is very interesting also for the other clubs to know that Chelsea, the likes of Chelsea, are spending so much money. Premier League is spending so much money. And Bayern got to find their way to do it. And I think that normally when Bayern play in Germany, you just hope that they will slip up then and again, because it would be great to have another champion at Bayern. But I think when you see in the international football, it's good for us neutral to see that Bayern doing well, because they have to find their own model in a time of state clubs, in the times of Premier League being the Super League that everybody says they are against. But we have to be honest, the Super League is already there. It's called Premier League.
Yes, and that warrants an entirely separate discussion altogether. We could discuss that at length. Let's look ahead to a few of the other Champions League games for the Bundesliga teams then, before we move on. You've got Dortmund up against Chelsea. You've got Eintracht up against Napoli. And then you have RB Leipzig against City. I guess we start with Frankfurt. 9 games unbeaten. You're kind of hoping a win against Cologne will really establish themselves up there amongst Union Berlin, up there amongst a Dortmund to challenge Bayern. Then go on to a rather devastating 3-0 loss away to Cologne, who are in great form themselves. Is it a matter of, is it inevitable? Good times can't last forever. What can we take from that game?
Well, we must say that as we're speaking, Dortmund play Chelsea tonight. So when most people will listen to this, we don't know that result. I think that, but based on form, I think that Dortmund will be, they are the favorite to kind of knock out a team that's not gelling at the moment at Chelsea, although I thought there were some good performances against West Ham. I think they played a good game, and I think Felix was brilliant. I think he will be a hit for them. I hope for the Chelsea fans that they will get him on. As for Eintracht Frankfurt, yes, the game in Cologne, and they play now the best team maybe in the world, Napoli. They are 15 points ahead in Serie A, and even Spalletti can't lose this, and they will get their first Scudetto for the first time since Diego Armando Maradona did that. Only that story is amazing, and I will recommend, if you're going to go to one game and you're talking about nostalgica, you go to Napoli. They haven't painted the stadium since Maradona played there. It's exactly the same. It's standing there in the middle of there. A neighborhood. It's unbelievable that is the symbol of Serie A. You just think of Italy when you see that straight away. As for the game in Cologne, Markus Krösche, a person, a head of sport that I rate very much. He's at Eintracht Frankfurt. He was angry after the game because he said maybe we went into a kind of comfort kind of modus in that game. I watched the game. They were struggling at set pieces, even at their own set pieces. One goal, they had a corner, and there was a counterattack from Cologne, and 3-0 it was. And that was a really setback for them. It need to be said that at 0-0, Eintracht Frankfurt had a big chance. Muani, the rookie of the season and the much wanted striker, it was played through by Jesper Lindström, and maybe there was a penalty, could be discussed, but he couldn't get a good shot for them. But that was a setback for Eintracht Frankfurt in there. But I will interrupt myself, because sometimes when I come to Germany, I always buy all the magazines, and I have them done maybe a week too late, because like if I go into Sportbild, that comes out on Wednesday. If I arrive on Tuesday, so then suddenly, as the cyclist of media now, then it's old news. But then they are title contenders. Eintracht Frankfurt could win the Bundesliga title. Maybe not at that level yet. So I think that Markus Krösche, he said at the right time he was a bit hard on them, because there was a couple of games. I'm thinking of Schalke, I'm thinking of Hertha. They won the games, maybe over 90 minutes they didn't have a great game, but still managed to do that. So, but Eintracht Frankfurt, I've said all along, I'm very optimistic. I say they play the best team in the world, and that's why they're going to knock out Napoli. So I will see if I'm right.
How sweet that would be. We can talk about also, Dortmund doesn't have to necessarily be from a Champions League perspective either, but it's more so, and I saw a good article on Bundesliga.com also about Dortmund's diversity of age, of experience, but also the type of players they could deploy during the game. Dortmund, no team has more goals from substitutions than Dortmund. They have they equal the total combined of players that have under 20 who have scored in the Bundesliga. They're also now keeping clean sheets. Kubel has been very good for them. Started the Premier League Bundesliga season, or the second half of the season, better than most. Only matched by Jurgen Klopp's very successful 2011-2012 season. Seems like the Dortmund project is gelling together. They're able to combine the defensive vitality that a title-winning team needs, and also a lot of youth, a lot of bravery, a lot of excitement. Is it? Can we deem Dortmund to be credible title candidates? You said also them going to the Chelsea game as well, in far better form than a struggling Chelsea as well. What is there to say about Dortmund?
I think that what we do know about Dortmund is the things you're saying. They give young players a chance. We wish Moukoko all the best. He was out with injury, and the bad news yesterday for Dortmund, he will be out for six weeks maybe, or for a long time. So we wish him all the best. But as you're saying, the Joker goals is an unbelievable, enormous amount of goals doing that, and which is of course a big praise for Terzic. I mean, every coach will love that. This weekend they went with Gittens who came on. I think he's 18 and he came on and scored. Brandt scored as well. So there is a thing in at the moment. You were saying Kobel, they're playing with Schlotterbeck. They are playing with a team with Hummels is on a bench, but still they managed to have Can in there. Can is playing as a number 6, and the goal scorer Brandt is quite interesting, because Brandt was a kind of symbolize how Dortmund is. Good footballers, more or less on the same level. Not that aggression, not that tempo. There's more or less the same speed, and he looks like the changed player now. And it just shows you when you see teams, when you say, yeah, the player is not doing well. Yes, is that because of the team isn't doing well? When he is not doing well, the team is not doing well. So it's always that dynamic between individuals and the collective of Dortmund. And Dortmund doesn't like to be called title candidates. They don't like to be called main challengers. And I guess we can end this podcast afterwards to talk about Union Berlin, the Union Berlin win in Leipzig, because there is also a fight who's going to be the main challenger. But Dortmund, with that winning culture they're having at the moment, with a lot of potential match winners, we had Sebastian Haller in the last round coming off on the score sheet. Adeyemi scored 2 goals. Then you have Brandt. Then you have Royce. You have so many players that can turn into match winners with Brandt. And as you were saying, if they manage to have clean sheets, they will be dangerous. Maybe for Bayern. I've said this for 10 years now. I'm afraid to say it again. And I would also say, Marcus, on a national level, Ryerson, Julian Ryerson, and we said it before, but I have to say it again. He played for Union Berlin. He was not that very well known in Norway. I always saw him, but to be honest, I was seeing him going to other games that was very important for Norway when Erling Haaland played or Bayern played, and Ryerson was immer there doing his job, getting games, then in midfield, getting more games, and then Munier got injured by Dortmund, and wow, out of nothing. I'm not saying I say that in quote because you can compare him with other Norwegian football players that are not so prolific. And then he got a great attitude. I'm not saying he's shy, but he's a careful guy off the pitch. But on the pitch, he's so at the games. He's so present at the games. And to be fair to him, they haven't lost since he came there, and he's playing all the time. I came yesterday. There was a press conference before the Champions League. It was Terzic and Ryerson. So impressive, and I think it's also good that we talked a lot about that, Marcus, because Martin Ødegaard and Erling Haaland, they are not your typical footballers. I mean, because they are world class. Martin Ødegaard being the wonder kid that went to Real Madrid, then a bit problem, and then he went on loan, and then he ending up as a captain of Arsenal. Erling Haaland, well, his story is well known. His Hollywood story, scoring 3 goals every time you more or less see him. But then you have Ryerson, who is that more typical career. And I think that Ryerson should be an example for players. He should be a role model for most players, because we see also, Marcus, we see a lot of Norwegian good players going abroad. They're out there for 5 minutes and then they're coming back to Norway. Ryerson has fought himself. He's doing with a great attitude. He's taken step by step. So I think that, yes, I'm aware of him because he's a Norwegian, but there are a lot of those players out there who makes their way up the ranks. And like you, Marcus, when you prepare for games, when I prepare for games, watching players and you see their career, there is nearly every player has had a time when they've been down. So it's the matter of falling. That happened to everybody, but then get yourself up. And Ryerson has built his career in a very impressive way. And I think it's brilliant to see how his career has developed now at Dortmund and Union Berlin.
A well-deserved tribute to Julian Ryerson. I completely agree with that. With that analysis, in terms of him being the more normal player as opposed to the exceptional ones like an Ødegaard and Haaland. And now, like you say, has yet to lose a game, has yet to even draw a game. He has actually won all games. So it will be exciting to see how he progresses in that Dortmund jersey. As we come to a close, Dad, we have to go through the RB Leipzig Union Berlin game. We tend to think, yeah, but surely Union Berlin will slip now. In a sense, I'm not saying it's publicly expressed, but you think, can they really? That club of that stature, they go to RB Leipzig, who haven't lost at home since September. They've been under great form under Marco Rose, even trailed the game after an incredible Hendrik strike. It's one of those where you go from the shot in the back of the goal, you don't even know what's happened. But then Haber comes and scores an equal, if not even a better goal, and they go on to win it. What can we say about Union Berlin that's not already been said?
Yeah, that is harder and harder. As you were saying, fantastic goals. I mean, we have to recommend people go in and have a look at the goals, because that 1-1 goal, yes, the first one was amazing, where it was one of those, anything you can do, I can do better. And it's not often that in a game you have 2 candidates for that. Now, there's not a lot to say, Marcus. Union Berlin is now a symbol for all the clubs in the world that nobody expects to be in the top. They are Leicester in the Premier League. They are Greece at the Euros. They are Union Berlin in the Bundesliga. Before the start, there was a big spectacle in the transfer window. Remember, they should get Isco, the Real Madrid player, but it didn't happen at the end. Okay, then we go to Leipzig. Leipzig, as you're saying, fantastic home record. So many strikers in there. They got match winners. Talking about match winners, they got goals in every department, on the bench and everywhere. And 18 games, I think, were out the loss, Marco Rose. And then Union Berlin winning 2-1. Even a draw would have made him good. No. They're winning and is up there. And as we have a look at the table now, it's getting closer and closer to the end. I mean, a Champions League for them, that would be amazing. But now they're like, as they're playing the day before Bayern Munich, they're top of the league. And I mean, every magazine in the world, every cult magazine in the world, every football romantic on social media, they will have Union Berlin as their second favorite team, based as they are in East Berlin, in East Germany. This is a DDR team, East Germany team.
Which is also encouraging, that in the sense that we always thought, what kind of teams were coming out of East Germany? And RB Leipzig being the example of, well, money can get you there in a sense. And then Union Berlin showing that there is another way to do it.
Yes, and as they do the rest is politics, there's always someone say, or it's not Alistair, Rory is saying always, but to keep the listeners up what we're talking about, East Germany, the wall went down in 1990, and of course East Germany had had a great football culture. There were so many great players there coming out of that wall going down. Ulf Kirsten, Andreas Thom, Matthias Hammer, and I've forgotten a lot of them. That they came straight into German football. Rainer Kallmund, who played for Leverkusen, he was early over the wall and got all the players more or less to come to Bayer Leverkusen. They had to tell him, you can't take all the big players, because he understood it straight away. There were so many good players. And Marcus, when I played for Lillestrøm, we always went in training camp in East Germany. We were walking through Checkpoint Charlie, the wall in Berlin, and going in there. It was, for a 19, 20-year-old, it was an amazing experience, but they had so many good teams. So for us, it was a cheaper training camp, but we played great players. But of course, there was a challenge for the Bundesliga. What do we do? How do we get these teams into the Bundesliga? And there was a lot of negotiating. There was a lot of problems how to get East Germany into West Germany and make the new Germany, of course. But this was one of them. And in sport, that was hard. And then you have Dresden, Dynamo Dresden. You had Hansa Rostock, who had a good spell, and then you had Cottbus. I always played Cottbus. That was a hard place to get. They had a coach called Edvard Geyer, who they said was the hardest coach ever. And I've had Magath, so if he is number one, I know what I'm talking about. But and a lot of the players you have seen on the international stage after that has been players coming from East Germany. So you have a Ballack who played for Chelsea. He went through that school. Bernd Schneider, who I played with in Frankfurt, he made his school there. Steffen Freund, my good friend and colleague, Steffen Freund came from that school. So it's very interesting now, and I think they make a special proudness for them to see that Union Berlin is doing so well. And if I may, at the end, talking about the cult, RB Leipzig is then, for football fans, the total opposite. Leipzig is, of course, also based in East Germany. So you have RB Leipzig against Union Berlin, and Union Berlin being run as the football romantic, want a club to be run, and then they're winning a Leipzig that always have a special place in the history of East Germany breaking down, because a lot of demonstrations started in that city, but still now with Red Bull in opposite of Union Berlin. So fantastic story. And if people are not updated on that, read Union Berlin's story. What a great football club. And if you have the chance, go there and watch a game. It's a family club. It's a fantastic place to go.
Appreciate the historical context of that answer. I was getting a lot more from that question than I was hoping to, so I appreciate that. As we draw to a close, I guess I could just sum up the remaining games that we haven't done. Hertha Berlin turned it around against Gladbach, moved them out of the automatic relegation spot. A big one for them. And Dad, chime in when you feel like it in terms of overall games. Freiburg beat Stuttgart. Stuttgart were in the lead, but 2 penalties from Grifo. And then you had Leverkusen beat struggling Hoffenheim under Pellegrino Materazzo's first game. And then you had Bayern beating Bochum 3-0 about rather.
And then you have Mainz winning, and the reason I say that, and Mainz winning 3-1 against Augsburg, because Mainz is more or less the capital. Mainz and Köln, it's carnival. It's like carnival in Germany, and Mainz played with carnival shirts. Carnival shirts being shirts with all colors in the world.
It was like hard to look at.
Yeah, it was.
They looked all right, but it was just trying to get the colors, and then they matched the opposing goalkeeper, and
yeah, there was a lot of things going into that. But in Mainz, and especially Köln, if I'm going to say 2 places where they love the carnivals, is there. So, and yeah, both winning. Unfortunately, Cologne winning against my Frankfurt, but Mainz winning 3-1. Bo Svensson needed that, and it was cool to see that they still got a tradition of that shirt. I guess that, talking about your shirts, I think those will be cult shirts that it's a collector's item, and No, so it was a good round, Marcus, and I gave you rest. It was a bit rest is politics with East Germany. So maybe we can get that out on a special, and we'll tag up Rory and Alistair on that one.
Yeah, bordering into the historical sphere as well now. We're advancing here at the German Football Podcast. Thanks a lot, Dad, for sitting down with me as always. And I forgot to mention the last game, Schalke Wolfsburg 0-0. Schalke they're not losing anymore. They're keeping clean sheets. So that's a start.
They've stopped losing. As
we said last week, they need to start winning soon too. But for now, Dad, thanks a lot. And then we'll chat about the Champions League games and the upcoming Bundesliga fixtures for this upcoming weekend for next week. So thanks a lot, Dad.
Auf Wiedersehen. Vielen Dank.